I always like to talk people out of the job before I make them an offer. I want to scare them away from the role. I'm going to tell them all of the awful things about the position. This is a hard stick and roll. You are held to a scoreboard. If you're the best person of all time, but your results are awful and they stay awful, we will likely no longer have a business relationship here. I will scare them away from the role before I've hired them. Because if that scares them away, I just saved myself the pain of replacing that person in 2 months or 3 months when they figure out that it's a split shift sometimes. What are the hardest things about working in your business with this role? Get those out ahead of time and see how scared they are.
Welcome to the Gym Member Machine Podcast.
Am I starting or are you starting? We're going to start like this. Dave, last week we had a therapy session of me talking about how the first gym crashed and burned and the number one skill that would have potentially helped solve that problem forever, which was being able to actually hire and place a manager in the facility. So I thought it'd be a good idea. Actually, you gave me the idea. Dave, guys, dear listeners, Dave had the idea and thought it would be a great idea for us to talk about potentially solving that problem. And I think it's a great idea that we could dive into today for you, dear listener.
So what we're discussing is how to hire a general manager, director of training, facility leader. This is the head honcho, your number two. This is the person who hopefully, if you hire and train them right, is going to give you more freedom as a gym owner. So let's start, GR, with what is this role?
Yeah, so hopefully a lot of this stuff, if you're like, oh man, there's no way I could hire a GM right now, I'm just hiring my first employee, I do think this will still be useful for you because I think a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about today is helpful in any hiring process. The role that we're speaking to specifically is, like Dave talked about, right? That people will call it a general manager. Most of our people are in that like small group, personal training or group training space. A facility leader is a term that I think can be attributed to our pal, Connor Flayhive. I'm not 100% who came up with that first. DOT is what Alloy calls their, de facto like facility managers, if you will. But we're basically talking about hiring a person that can be your boots on the ground person that runs the facility, helps keep the trains running on time, potentially does some sales, but it is your general manager, right? Now, it's interesting. Our pal Mark Fisher did a great talk on this. I think it was a couple of BFU meetings ago. Shout out Business for Unicorns. And the fact is, like these roles can vary quite a bit. So part of this is going to be dependent on what you need for your specific facility. What that is typically going to look like is maybe a teensy bit of coaching. I think it can be good, depending on the load of other areas and other responsibilities, to have this person still kind of have they're still on the field a little bit, right? They've still got their finger on the pulse. They're still doing some sessions. They still know the job, that they will be managing their fellow trainer or trainers, right? Depending on the model. A lot of these small group personal training facilities, they'll run the whole thing with 2 people, right? And it's like 2 full-timers. So they may just be managing one person. It may be a couple, it may be a few, depending on how big your facility is. But basically, you're going to have, there's going to be management of other trainers. There is likely to be a sales component to what they're doing. Typically, that's what you see, I think, in most cases, particularly if it's going to be your first one and you're jumping off to run number 2, you probably don't want to be running the sales at both facilities. It's just a recipe for disaster. And so you need someone that can keep number 1 growing and doing the thing. So you can go off and focus on, number 2 and have your facility leader, who hopefully you've already stress tested and everything else, run the show and keep things growing at location 1. Typically going to have some sales. They're typically going to be doing things like tracking KPIs and things like that. They may be, managing comms with the janitor service or the cleaning service or what have you. Like they're sort of the catch-all for you in the facility. They're typically not doing all of the coaching, but that is typically going to be a component of what they do. And then it is somewhat dependent on the model, but I've certainly seen some folks, if you do accountability conversations with members or check-in calls or momentum calls or whatever the heck it is, right? Sometimes the facility leaders are the ones that are doing those conversations with members. Sometimes that's split up across other people on the staff. I think probably a good concept here for anything that you're hiring for is if you have higher level people, right? People that you're paying more money to, you probably want them doing things that are more expensive and more valuable to business, right? Ostensibly to delegate than say,
Cleaning the
but like
bathroom.
cleaning the bathroom, programming. Like you could probably like have somebody else in the business program. Uh, I did a very like Trumpian. You can probably have somebody else in the business program. I've got the best program, the best. Our program better than any programs. Yeah. Oof. Tangent. We didn't say positive or negative things, so hopefully we didn't lose anybody there. Goodness gracious, what a crazy world we live in. But you want to delegate you want to have your highest level people doing your highest level things. And so if there are things that other members on the team can do cheaper than what again, conceivably your highest level person, right, in your business can do, then you probably want to have again, the less paid, I shouldn't say lower level, but the lower paid individuals handle.
So to quickly recap, you said they're probably doing management, most likely some sales, coaching, mini sessions, or if they're just starting, maybe all the sessions. And then as that, most often the model that we see, the like 6 to 8 to 1 small group scalable model, many times they're going to start be the only person. They hire a part-time coach. They'll go to less hours on the floor, shift more into the management side of things, managing contractors like cleaners, agency, right? They're going to be in Slack channel with GMM running their ads successfully. They're doing accountability calls. And so, yeah, so that's sort of the recap of the role, which
Yeah.
obviously with
And
bigger gyms that may be purely management and less coaching. But yeah,
and
does
that's
that
going
bring
to
anything up?
blend. So like they're not necessarily going to be like managing the marketing tends to be a little bit of a higher level thing. Like we see more owners interfacing with us there than we do like the DOT is managing that relationship and making a decision on ad spend and things like that. Now we at GMM, like we still interface with all of the DOTs and facility leaders, particularly when they're doing sales, right? Because we can be part of that process to help coach them up on that side of things if they need help developing on that side. But like your lower level contractors are making sure like was there toilet paper in the bathrooms, like do we need to order toilet paper if we somehow don't have that like automated at this stage? Then yeah, like it would be lower level contractors like that. And then one thing we didn't say is obviously they're going to be interfacing with you as the owner quite a bit, right? Like they are going to become your primary direct report, hopefully, and then we'll be managing the people underneath them so that you're not having to have one-on-ones with every single trainer on the staff, and you are eventually interfacing with just your DOTs if you end up to the point where you getting to the point where you have multiple locations like some of our folks have at this stage. But it is very much a puzzle, right? That is dependent on the individual makeup of your facility and where that facility is at this given snapshot in time. During pre-sale, that load is going to be way more sales typically, right? So a lot of these, the alloys or even the newer independents that the owner's not running off to open the second location. They have hired somebody to run off and open that next location. A lot of times it's that DOT that they've hired to run that pre-sale process and execute on the owner's plan, and the owner's no longer doing it. When you're in like full gym training mode, right? If you've got a full training staff where your manager, we keep on using different terms, where your manager doesn't have to coach on the floor and that's okay for your profitability and everything else. Like there's enough other stuff for them to be doing, or there's lots of trainers, which means lots of management conversations, right? Lots of one-on-ones, lots of development of the team. Well, then they may not have time to coach. A smaller facility, they might still be coaching. So this is very much a choose your own adventure and figure out what is going to make the most sense for you and your facility, and then move on, right? With the rest of the process.
Let's say I'm interested in hiring for this role. It sounds like it's the key missing piece to scaling and freedom and all that, but I don't know if I can afford it. I'm not
Yeah.
sure like what does it look like from the hundreds of thousands of gyms you've seen for compensation for this person?
Yeah. So again, this is not typically going to be the first person you hire in like your typical independent business. Like you are oftentimes hiring lots of other things first, right? You're going to hire a trainer before you ever think about hiring a GM, and you're only going to hire again with all these different terms. They're all interchangeable: DOT, facility leader, GM. Maybe we'll agree to call it GM for the rest of the conversation, just so it's easy acronyms here. You might never hire a GM if you plan on running your gym and being the operator forever, right? Like your first hire of a GM might be when you're thinking about retiring, if you want to like keep your gym. Okay. In other cases, if you know you're going to end up opening multiple locations, you are going to have to hire this role at some point. If you decide you want to change your relationship with your business a little bit and not be so involved in the day to day, then this might be, a role that you're going to hire for. But compensation wise, there's a handful of ways that it can be done. My favorite is, and this is purely stolen from Connor Flayhive, is a base salary, and that's going to vary depending on the market. So I do not have a perfect, it's going to be, 60K base or a 50K base or a 70. Like it's going to vary depending on the market. You want to do your own individual market research. It's very easy to do now with tools like PayScale, or I think Glassdoor is another one. I know we use PayScale, where you can go look at, and you can also look at like what other jobs are being marketed in your area to see what people are paying for a management role. You want to be paying, market value ideally, or if they figure out their market value is higher somewhere else, like they're likely to go find somewhere else to work, which can also be okay. But typically what we'll see is a base between, call it 50 and 70, right? Probably somewhere in the mid range. Again, this person is managing the facility, but it is a very heavy incentive driven role with like the way Connor does his. Now, Connor's is pretty elegant because they have such a simple model. Instead of making the bonuses based on revenue or profit or things like that, they base it off a number of members, because they've only got like 2 or 3 membership options. I think it might just be 2 membership options. And so they know if we get to X number of members, we know how much money we're making. We've got the model so dialed. Like it doesn't matter if they all buy the cheapest thing, they're not going to, but if they did all buy the cheapest thing, then I know I can afford to pay you this, and then we'll end up being okay, right? And so the number of members is sort of, I think, the most elegant one. You can make it based on revenue, but the nice thing here, because you can incentivize these people any number of ways, I really like the active number of members or gross revenue as the marker for the bonus incentive for these individuals, like their key KPI, because in order to hit that number, they've got to be focused both on new member acquisition and on keeping those members happy and keeping them around, right? Retention. And so it's a really like nice, elegant, it's a self-balancing KPI. So there are situations like we've thought about this with this business. If we told our leadership team, hey, you've got free reign to hire however much you want and whatever you want to do and your only KPI is churn, then guess what? Every single person is going to be like, dude, we're hiring freaking everybody, right? There's no balancing KPI. We're going to have one CS coach, one ads person, one tech person, like maybe multiple tech people, like per member in the program. And we're never going to lose anybody. Theoretically, you still lose people, right? But we're never going to lose anybody because we have no balancing KPI. That would be disastrous for the business. We might have super low churn, but like we're going to be losing crazy freaking money, right? Every single, like we won't be around very long. So you want to have balancing KPIs, right? So you might want to have, churn and something else, right? Churn, and for us, it might be locations per head, right? Locations per team member, or it might be profit per, whatever. Like there's different things you could do, but you want to have balancing KPIs. Well, number of members or total gross revenue is a pretty well balanced KPI, because hey, when we have a lower number of members, we need to be acquiring those members. We also need to be keeping those members happy and sticking around, because otherwise that member numbers are not going to go up and the business isn't going to be as happy and healthy and profitable. So that's sort of my favorite way. I think typically this may have changed, but the last time that we'd spoken about it, you've basically got tiers typically. So you've got your little base salary, and then at the let's say at a break even point or a low level of profitability, maybe at 70 members, this is going to depend on your individual number situation. Maybe it's 70 members. We'll just throw that number out there. Okay, you get a bump to this, right? Connor does his. It's the same way we do our bonuses at GMM. It's tracked monthly, paid quarterly. So if you're above this member threshold for 3 months, then you get that big bonus at the end of the quarter. If you're below it for 1 month, then you'd get 2 months of the bonus at the end of the quarter. Again, assuming you were above that threshold for 2 of the months. And then they have a kind of a mid-tier threshold, and then they have a facilities full. And so typically, I think what they said is their facility leaders have the ability to make about 90. It may be a little more, maybe a little less, but they've got the ability to make 90 at a completely full, like fleshed out facility. Again, that's running well. It's completely full to the brim, all that fun stuff, which is like a pretty freaking nice job. Probably anywhere, but certainly in the fitness industry. So that's the most common compensation method that we see, particularly with our independents. I'm honestly not 100% sure what like the alloys do, or if I had permission to say it, even if I did know it. But I like that way better than I do. I would just do like a really big base salary, or do just like market value based salary with no KPI for bonuses. Like these are typically like sales individuals. Like I really like situations where people's income is tied to the outcome, right, of the business. It doesn't always make sense, but for this role, someone who's commissioned, someone who's kind of they should be incentivized to keep people around, keep the facility running well. Gosh, it just makes too much sense for me to recommend anything else really at this stage. So what about sales commission? It's like, yeah, like, that's cool. Also, there's a lot of tracking that comes along with that. And what do you do about churn? Because if you've got your GM that's fully focused on just getting new members in the door and they don't give two shits about what happens on the back end, maybe you get lucky and your churn's okay, but more likely would be show me the incentive, I'll show you the behavior. I'm just focused on getting people in. And as long as I sign people up like crazy, even if they leave the next month, I'm good, even though the business isn't. Like it just, again, it doesn't make sense. So the example I gave, I think is like, if I was doing this again, that's what I'm doing. I don't think it's worth recommending really anything else in these scenarios.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it scales really well, whether you have a 1-pod model of 6, 2-pod or 2-zone model of 12, where it's like, okay, now that GM's probably doing a lot less coaching, there's most likely 2 and maybe even another part-time trainer on the floor to scale up to that 170, 200 plus mark. But that self-balancing KPI is magical because, okay, maybe now they're doing way more sales and management, but they know I got to get people in and I got to keep them. I got to be good on the offense, got to be good on the defense. So, okay, so this all sounds good. I love the idea of that the mitigating the risk of bringing in this person through the way that we compensate them. Where am I going to find this unicorn?
Yeah, and unicorn is a good term because these are tough roles. So as the business matures, like I know Connor was doing this last time we talked about it. As the business matures, like this like GM role is really sneaky tough. Like if you're looking for someone who can be a killer on sales and follow up, and then also be good at coaching and interfacing with members, and then also be good as a manager, like that's a really tough thing to do. And so what they've done, I think now is, and again, I don't know if this has changed the incentive structure at all, but they basically have like a regional salesperson. And so they've taken the necessity of the skill of sales off of their DOT, their GMs, right, for the most part. And that can change sort of what you're looking for over time. Most gyms aren't in that position, right? Most gyms don't have enough opportunity volume and enough freaking money to go around to be able to afford, hey, this is just a full-time salesperson or a full-time sales team, and then I've got my management team, what have you. Like in most cases, that's not going to be the case. And so you got to go find your unicorns. And the your most common places are going to be your network, right? Sometimes that includes, clients if they've been to other gyms and had managers they really enjoyed. Sometimes it's your current team, right? Someone who knows the system, and we'll get into the actual qualities that you're looking for and how to hopefully make this less of a mistake later in the episode. So it can be someone that's currently on your team. Other places are job posting and job postings and job ads. We use LinkedIn. We've had clients use Indeed with success. You say, "Oh, job ads, like that sounds crazy." It's like, well, hiring is the same concept as like a hiring funnel. It's the same thing as a sales funnel. All right. The difference is you're paying the person at the end of it. Everything else is basically the same shit. And so, Dave, if I freaking whatever put a gun to your head and threaten your family like a crazy person and said, Dave, you have to get customers in the next month or I'm going to kick you in the genitals as hard as I can for 60 seconds and you get nothing to do about it. You might be like, I'm not getting customers. That sounds like my idea of a good time. But assuming that you like your genitals and you don't want to be kicked there, what would you be doing to get new customers? Would you be asking for referrals? Would you be going to your network? Would you also probably be running ads because you're going to get kicked in the genitals if you don't, right? You'd be doing everything at your disposal to avoid deeply bruised genitalia. Now, maybe it will swell afterwards. And again, there could be some positive outcomes. Should have done something more clearly negative, but you're going to be doing everything in your power. And so typically when you're trying to hire this person, if you don't just have a butt ton of time, like you're in pre-sale, you signed a lease, you need to hire somebody to run the show really quickly. Yes, I'm running freaking job ads, right? I'm not going to try to go cheap on this and not pay to play on these job posting platforms. If you got a little bit more time, maybe you can see if free postings or the super low cost postings do anything for you. My recommendation is to pay to play. What are our other notes? Staffing agencies can be a thing. If I'm being honest, I haven't heard great feedback about what's available out in the gym industry about this. So I wouldn't recommend that one. And then the final one would be kind of doing a little bit of headhunting. And this is where like my favorite way to do it is like you can go on LinkedIn, see who's working at the gyms in town, managing like the big franchises in town, and go message those people. And if you want to make it kind of like as elegant as you possibly can, you say, yeah, hey, great to connect. First name. We're, looking at hiring a new, facility leader. Like, here's what the opportunity looks like. Is there anyone in your network that would be interested in this? I know you're like in this world, like, meeting a lot of you know somebody, point them my way. You make it like, hey, do you know anyone? Well, they know someone very well. They may know somebody else, but they also know themselves, and they may be sick of where they're working now and may be looking for a new opportunity. And oh, well, I guess we can have a conversation and see how this goes, and then go through the hiring process that way. Like that'd be a good way to find somebody with experience. Which, if it's your first time doing it, again, there's different ways to think about hiring for experience and hiring without. I'd say if you're at the point where you are like deeply successful, it's oftentimes easier to find somebody who has done the job already. And they may be able to teach you things about how the job goes well and share some of their experience and things like that. As opposed to, oh, you are a really talented trainer or you're from this outside industry and trying to get them into the business, right? Things like that. Because that training time that you're going to have for them is going to be expensive because you do have to teach people how to do the job once they're in there. So I really like the idea of the headhunting thing, right? Like, and you can do it in kind of a nice, elegant way. So, oh yeah, I wasn't trying to poach you, right? I just wanted to see if you knew anybody because you're in the industry in this area as well. So it's kind of a nice, elegant way to potentially get a more qualified candidate, particularly if you're having trouble finding other qualified candidates.
Awesome. So I've gone through this process of finding these unicorns and I've got some candidates, right? I've shaken the trees and I've got some people that I'm excited about. Now what? I've got to go through a hiring process.
Yeah. So we maybe should have done this in a different order, realistically, because I don't want you to just say, hey, all right, I know I need to hire this thing, and then I'm gonna go, start headhunting people. You really want to go through the hiring process first, and then go post the thing. Like you want to figure out who the heck you're looking for first. So what we recommend, and we've talked about this in terms of hiring salespeople. I did a talk at the Alloy conference. that was specifically about this, about hiring DOTs for them as their term for GM. But really, with any hiring process, you want to think about effectively two things, right? You want to identify the qualities that you'd want to see in the role that you are hiring for. And then you want the hiring process to do as good of a job as it can of exposing said qualities as early in the process as possible. If wifey decided to kick me to the curb and I had to get back in this dating scene tomorrow, see, I ain't got patience, right? It's exactly how I think about the dating world right now. Like the first date, I'm sitting down, I'm having my list out of all of my grumpy shit and like the specific shit that I'm like not looking for on the other side. And I'm gonna be like, I snore, sometimes I smell bad. Like right now, I didn't have time to shower after my goddamn workout because I had a coaching call right after, and this, that, and the other. And, these are the beliefs and the things that I want to spend my time doing. Deal breaker or no? We're both adults. And I want to know as early as we can and save both of us time in the process. So put that in a bullet point, right? How hiring is like dating. But we got to identify the qualities first. These are some of the qualities that I recommend. So the first thing that you are going to look for with any hire, my recommendation is you need to hire for like vibes and values fit, or that's the first filter. I shouldn't say you need to hire for that, but gosh, if you hire somebody who's not like a vibe, a personality fit, a culture fit for what you guys are doing at your respective facilities, probably not going to be a good fit long term, right? And the only thing more painful than having somebody leave or having somebody not work immediately in the hiring process, I shouldn't say the only thing, but something that's way more painful than having that happen is having somebody on your team for 3 months, 6 months, a year, and then figuring out, gosh, this has sucked. Now I've got to fire them and replace them with somebody new, and you're going through the whole process again. So highly recommend, your vibes, culture, values fit. Like that's got to be the first thing. That's the first filter sort of permission to play, and that's for any role in the business. The next piece is identify the qualities that you're looking for in that specific role. And so for me, the really memorable framework that I broke down for folks is what I call the 4 C's. And so the 4 C's that I want to look for in any type of sales role, I think a lot of these honestly apply to lots of different roles as well. But the first C is coachability. And coachability is broken down both into the attitude and the ability to implement on feedback, right? So we've seen this before. Don't make faces, Dave, where you've got somebody who's got like the best attitude of all time when it comes to taking feedback, and then things may not change, right? And we've got to have both for the person to be a great fit on the team. And so we want part of our hiring process, I think we'll get into that a little bit, to select for someone who both has a great attitude, right, the humility to accept feedback, because that is not everyone, and certainly not everyone in the fitness industry, right? And then they've got to have the ability to implement on said feedback, right? Can you take coaching and get better in the way that you are going to be, coached up here? Second C is competitiveness. So these roles are typically sales roles. They're very KPI, like scoreboard driven roles. I want them to view your KPIs for them as a freaking blood oath to you in the business, right? I want somebody who's very, very scoreboard driven. They want to win. They've got that competitive drive. These are hard roles. You're going to ask these people to do lots of things. If they don't have that just like intrinsic motivation to win, you're probably going to have a bad time, right, with that hire. Third C is consistency. And so, in sales, this is a really big stinking deal, because if you're doing, follow up for leads and, you're getting rejected more often than you're used to, you're calling somebody, they're telling you to go play in traffic, all that fun stuff, like that's hard, right? It's hard to do that day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, all that shit. And so you want somebody who's just like, no, I'm good, right? I'm going to do the things. I'm consistent. I'm not just competitive like now, today, in this tiny little moment. I'm also somebody who does the things consistently over time. And then the fourth thing, last for a reason, so you remember it the most, is care. They've got to have a deep give a shit for the people that your business is called to serve. The relationship is not over with these people when the credit card is swiped, right? With your clients, when the credit card is swiped, you guys make your money on recurring revenue on those clients sticking around for the long haul. So if they're coachable, competitive, and consistent, but they don't care about the clients, number one, they're not going to close as much because prospects can smell that like blood in the water. Like when you're being sold by someone who like really doesn't care, prospects can smell that. They're not going to close as much, but also they're not going to stick around. So like those 4 C's, you can adjust these as you see fit. But man, for me, it's like I am very much focused on those 4 things. Those would be 4 things that I want to select for very heavily if I was hiring for this type of role, right? You need to identify the other qualities that make sense for you and your business. If you've got a really heavy management load, you might look for care of working with the team, right? You might need a little bit of patience in working with the team, the ability to have tough conversations. Do they have management experience before? And can you check the references and see what their direct reports, their former direct reports said about them? Do you feel really good about your ability to coach up and train managers? Well, that would warrant a lot of leadership skill and experience on your part. Maybe you can do that. This is where it's really helpful to know yourself and have a little bit of self-awareness, because like if it was just me in this business, I would not feel confident in my ability to train up managers. I would want to hire people to be able to do that for me, you know, particularly like years ago when I had no idea what good management really looked like, because I still feel like I am not an amazing manager, if you will.
I love all those. And I think it's a good, nice little mnemonic of coachability, competitiveness, consistency, care. And then the vibes, values, fit. And like you said, there may be a lot of other qualities based on what the role is, especially if it's more senior, bigger gym. Like you said, maybe more managerial. If it's super into training, or maybe you have other things you offer at your gym, maybe they need to know about physical therapy or mental health counseling, like we have with one of our clients, or stuff like that. So let's say I've got the qualities identified, got my 4 C's down. What's the next step to help me expose those and figure out if it's going to work?
So again, we want to do this as early in the process as freaking possible, right? So when we think like personality fit, and in the gym business, right, a lot of this is going to be, verbal communication, either in person or over the phone. My biggest recommendation, I don't know if it's my biggest one or not, but one of my biggest hiring pro tips, one of my favorite hiring pro tips is you need to have a video application with folks when they submit their resume, right? Or they submit their job application or whatever it is. I rarely look at resumes on the first pass. I look at the video applications first, and we do that for every single, it doesn't matter if it's a client facing role or not. For us, it could be a sort of back of house tech role, things like that. I'm not looking at applications without a video submission, right? An unlisted YouTube or a Loom video is just too simple to do now. And so I do that first. I think it replaces the phone screen that we used to be taught. So many of us in the gym space were taught like, do a 5-minute phone screen. And the only goal of the phone screen is to determine whether or not you'd rather run out and jump in front of, oncoming traffic than be on the phone with this person, right? Like that's your personality filter. And so you can skip a little bit of the process with a video application that is required as a part of that initial application. I don't look at applications without it. I don't care how qualified the resume looks. That also exposes a little bit of give a shit for the position, right? If you don't take the time to do a 2-minute video thing to submit with this job application, you won't take the time to read what the application, what the role entails. What are we doing here, right? You don't care enough for me to want to bring you into my business. And so that's thing number one. Coachability is do the job first. So I like this for coaches. I like this for sales pieces of the role. You could, in theory, like this is a big thing. I'd probably do it. Like if I was hiring a GM of the business and I know they're going to be managing my training team, I'm probably going to role play a management conversation. Like, okay, now we're going to do a session where I'm an employee that's had XYZ issue. I'm going to create a test scenario and then work through the process with them. I'll use sales as the example, but you can do this with the training side of things. But I highly recommend this is maybe my more favorite of the hiring tips is have them do the job first. So with sales, I'm going to give them a little mini script. That's like we use our GMM like simple set script with anyone we hire for the sales stuff. I'm going to have them give them the answers to the test before the trial session. This is another thing, right? Whether it's training, where I'll give them a micro session that looks like the training that we do at the gym, whether it's, management is like a little bit different, but I'm going to give them the scenario beforehand because your worst case scenario is they're super talented and they don't look at it and they knock it out of the park, right? You also give them the chance to do their homework, which if they're not super talented, but they did the homework, they practice the thing and they show up and they perform well, cool, right? That's great. The second piece of this is regardless of how it goes, I'm going to give that person feedback. And I'm going to throttle the feedback up or down depending on how much of an egotistical fuck I have on the other side. So if I get like super, say we're hiring for sales and they're like, man, I'm the best closers in all time. Like I read Grant Cardone, Jordan Belfort, like you put them in front of me, like I'm going to close everybody. I feel like I teach you how to sell. Like what the fuck you got to tell me? I'm going to be a hard ass on my feedback and I'm going to see how they take it. Because if they get defensive, if they want to, fight, disagree, man, I'm looking for body language and shit too. Like if I can sense the defensiveness and I think they're just bullshitting me for the interview, like I am making note of that, right? Any sort of hard pushback on the feedback or things like that are not a, truly collaborative discussion with the individual on the other side. No, you've already told me that you do not have the ability to take feedback. This is a feedback driven business. It's not going to work, right? But you get two major pieces of the thing right there. Like I can't even imagine now. Like if I was hiring a trainer, say I get back in the gym business, I'm gonna hire a trainer. I'm just doing it based off of talking to the person on the other side and looking at a resume. Like that's insane to me. Like okay, you've trained at other places. I don't know how good you actually are. So I want to give you a micro session of what we do. I'm going to give you the answers to the test. Here's the cues you want to use. Here's what we want to look out for. Here's the red flags. 2-3 movements, right? Have them train me. You can have people on your team if you got more team members or really trusted clients, maybe a spouse, whatever. That if it's a group environment, you could have them like train a group, see how they're paying attention to multiple folks. Then I'm going to get a feel for how they actually do the job, right? How do they actually do the thing that you're going to end up hiring for? Not doing this makes zero sense to me, honestly. And then we give them feedback. We make it short enough where we have time to give them feedback and see how coachable they are right there live in the thing. What are we doing? Related to this, back in the dungeon days, we had hired a trainer. So this was back when we were like pure large group facility, very high energy, all sessions were a party, whatever else. And this person she was great, man. She was a values fit, good person, the vibes all fit, everything else. She couldn't get her voice up. She would not get her voice up during sessions. Clients couldn't hear her, right? We started everybody with like, we've got our head coach that knows how to do things there. And then we would just have like the trainees kind of be like motivational icing on the cake, kind of walking around the session, shadowing, looking at how things go, but being a little bit of energy, maybe calling out the clock, things like that. Clients couldn't hear her. She wouldn't project. We tried to coach her up. We tried all like everything. Like it was the biggest sweetheart could possibly be with this person. Couldn't get it done. Right? So I was like, I love you. We can't keep you here. Right? It's just not going to be a fit. Like, wish you the best. I'll give you whatever recommendation you want to have. But like, I think you need like a one-on-one type training, environment for this to work out for you. So what did I do? I took that lesson and I added it as a filter to the hiring process. So we did this whole little game. I stole it from Vince, where we would throw shit all over the floor and then, you do blindfold or just close your eyes. And it's like, we would turn up the music and I'd say, you've got to guide me through the obstacle course, through the gauntlet, right? While the music is on and I'm blindfolded. And so it was cool because I think there's some intelligence to it. I got to say, I figured it out real quick. Okay. It was like, okay, 1 foot in front of the other, right? Put your feet together. Start turning to your left without stepping forward. Turn to left, turn to left, turn to left. Okay. Now 1 foot in front of the other. Yeah, you did it pretty systematically, but it was fun because I would tell candidates like, just so you know, we time this and we're going to be judging this against the other candidates. We never actually judged that part, but they had to get loud. So we filtered very quickly for could they get the volume up? We also filtered for assholery because we had another problem with that. We hired somebody that ended up being kind of like a douche. And so we would mess up on purpose and see how they handled it. And we had at least one candidate that was like, you could tell like was like pissed off about us messing up the thing a little bit. And yeah, yeah. He's just a fucking idiot. All right. Gotcha. Right. So having these types of filters, I think, are exceptionally useful. They've certainly been exceptionally useful for us. So that's coachability, right? You're looking for humility, processing speed. Can they actually take the feedback, implement what you've given them? And then the talent, right? Like with sales, it's like, can you think on your feet if I throw you a curveball? Can you take the feedback that I've given you and implement that on the next conversation? Things like that. The other things in terms of like consistency, being obsessed with the scoreboard, even competitiveness. Like I really want to see like what the history looks like and scare them away from the job. So scare them away from the job. I'm going to bury the lead a little bit, but I guess I can do that since it's our podcast here, Dave. I always like to talk people out of the job before I make them an offer. I want to scare them away from the role before we actually make an offer to them. I'm going to tell them all of the awful things about the position, all of the worst things that we possibly can. Like, this is a hard sticking role. You are held to a scoreboard. Like, if you're the best person of all time, but your results are awful and they stay awful, like, we will likely no longer have a business relationship here, right? Like, I will scare them away from the role before I've hired them. Because if that scares them away, like, good. I just saved myself the pain of replacing that person in 2 months or 3 months when they figure out that it's a split shift sometimes and they're going to have to do that, right? Like, I don't want to hide the negative things about the role. This is where the gym owner is going to have to do some homework on their end. Like, what are the negative things? What are the hardest things about working in your business with this role, right? Get those out ahead of time and see how scared they are. Other things, I'll jump into some other notes on like competitiveness and things like that. Reps with a past quota will get this. So this is the benefit of finding somebody that's been in this like sales type of role before. So they've had a quota before, they've been in sales stuff in the past, like, and quota is just like, oh, you have to get this many members a month or whatever, right? You got to get this many sales. Like, it's a numerical target typically associated with sales roles. Reps with a past quota will sort of get this piece of it almost implicitly. Like, they'll have that experience. They should be able to tell you like what was their percentage of months above or below quota. Okay, like what was the reasoning for that, what have you. And these are all things that you can check in with their previous bosses, managers, etc., to confirm that what they say matches what the previous managers say, right? You're looking for drive and competitiveness, grit. So I like to look for evidence of grit. This can be like one of my favorite ones is, I feel, did James Pratt play D3 football? Was he a D3 guy? Was he like a D2? Yeah, he was D3. So I know so many like super successful gym owners that were like D3 athletes, right? So I was a D3 athlete. Like, D3 athlete, like, you don't get the money, you don't get the special treatment, you don't get the freaking like tutors, like, oh, I've got hot tutors that do all my tests for me and go to class for me. Like, you don't get that, man, in D3 sports. Like, you just have basically a sometimes full, sometimes part-time job, depending on the sport. And you've got to be a student and you got to get the grades and whatever else. And if you do that all 4 years, just for pure love of the game, because like, you ain't going pro, like, sorry, like, it's just not happening. That's a really good example of grit, right? If somebody's sticking to something for a really long time, getting to a high enough level where you can play in college, and some D3 teams will just take freaking anybody. Like, I get that, but it's still, it's evidence of grit. Have they ever done something hard and stuck with it? Do they have experience in roles that makes the role that you are hiring them for a cakewalk? So this is probably less common for gym business people, but like, Dude, if you did door-to-door sales and you made like a ton of door-to-door sales, being in the gym business is probably going to be pretty easy, right? Doing sales for a gym is probably going to be pretty easy for you. You know, if you were a call center rep somewhere else, and then you're going to call leads for XYZ gym, and these are people that have like, when I say cold calling, but people will call following up with our Facebook leads, like they'll call that, oh, I'm cold calling people. So you're not cold calling people. You're calling people that have raised their hand, saw your offer, said they're interested in it. Is everyone going to answer? Is everyone going to be nice? No. But that is very different than cold calling, which is what happens when you guys get calls from unknown numbers where you have no idea how they got the information and they annoy the fuck out of you all day long. Like if somebody was in that type of job and they're going to do gym sales for you, your gym sales is a walk in the park. Right. So if they have that type of experience, that's kind of a nice thing. And then again, how scared are they when you try to talk them out of it? Care is the toughest one. Care, you've just got to suss out in conversations. It's a lot easier if the person is coming from inside the business. Right. Because like, if we were going to move you into a different role, right? Do I have to worry about you caring about GMM? Like, no. Like, I know your heart's in the right place. Like, that's an easy thing. Like, I don't have to suss that piece out. And so if you're hiring internally, then that piece is a little bit easier. Otherwise, you're going to have to get creative with questions. This is where AI, I think, can be so useful. It's like, I've got XYZ core values. Help me come up with some interview questions that expose those, right? With really good, high quality interview questions that expose those qualities. Ways to kind of suss out care. On your job description, I want to lean hard into how much you care about your clients, like how just like client obsessed you are in your job application. Hopefully that weeds out some people that do not feel that way, right? I want to listen for how they talk about previous roles. So like in general, someone who's like super, super negative about every single position they've been in the past, they're probably like a generally negative person, like probably a little more narcissistic and everything is someone else's fault, right? External locus of control, all that fun stuff. Like probably not someone you want in the business, probably doesn't care that much about the people around them. If you're hiring for, for sales stuff, be like, what excites you about sales? What excites you about managing people? Shout out to Alex, right? Our incredible director of media buying. When we were hiring them, so talk to me, like what gets you excited about management? He's like, I was managing people in my past role and I love seeing, and you could tell it was like visceral. It's like, oh dude, like you feel this. Like I just loved seeing them develop and grow. And, they would tell a story like this person like did this and they started here and then they got to do this and got a house or whatever it was. Like that's a good visceral care. If they're in the fitness industry, like talk to me about a time you went above and beyond for a client, right? Tell me about your favorite client success story, whatever it is. And if they get really like excited about those stories, that's probably a positive thing, particularly if it's about the freaking client and not just about them. For sales, tell me about a time that you didn't attempt to close a prospect and what made you think that was the right call. Sometimes that's nice, right? Not all money's good money. I want to know that they're okay. Like personally, you may not feel this way in your gym. Not you, Dave, but you, dear listener. But like, dude, not all money's good money, right? Not every person that sits down with you is a perfect, or I shouldn't say perfect, but is a candidate at all for what you do in your gyms. And I don't want my salespeople to like high pressure close every single person that sits down across from us into our gym if they're not a fit for what we do, right? Bad clients, like they are bad. That's why we call them bad clients, right? They lead to more headaches, bad reviews, like all the stuff, all because you're like, well, you can kind of like, all right, like let me just do the sale thing and then we'll deal with it on the other side. That's not great. Another question, imagine a prospect wasn't a great fit. Like, what do you do? How would you handle that situation? Tell me about it, right? Again, I think stories of past experience are better than theoreticals. Like what would you do? As opposed to like what you did. I think what you did in XYZ situation is more powerful than how would you handle this. But when you pull it all together with like, oh, let's role play these things. Let's see how you actually act in person alongside, checking references, things like that. Like you've got a really good shot at getting somebody that has a chance to be solid for the role.
Okay, GR, those were pretty epic ideas on being able to expose, test, filter for those qualities so that it doesn't end up biting you in the rear end down the road. You get to nip it in the bud. So, are there any other red flags, pro tips you've got for this interview and early employment process to go well?
I'll give my random fun pro tips. So I'll steal one from the lovely Emily Strassfeld. She says hire actors. Again, this is particularly like for sales uh, type situations. I think it works great for trainers as well. Not all of us are in freaking like on Broadway where you just go, oh yeah, here's an actor, right? But hire actors was like a good one because it's like they've had to learn lines, they've had to learn how to say words, they've had to learn how to change tonality and things like that. And they're typically pretty gritty. Like it's a hard thing to be good at, and so I think that's a fun one. My pro tip for, again, this is in particular if this person, or particularly, I can say that word, if the GM that you're hiring is going to have sales as a part of what they're doing, find someone that can do karaoke or impressions. You like this one. You like this one because I made you do Cartman voice, and I was like, Dave could do sales. Would you like to do competing Cartman voices on the podcast right now in front of everyone, in front of all of our 3 listeners? No.
No, my Cartman. Yeah,
No.
but I refuse because you are better. I was actually pretty impressed. In 6th grade, I was the talk of the class. I was the best person at Cartman in my 6th grade class, and that lasted until now when you were the first person I met who's better at Cartman. So no, I refuse.
Well, if you can find somebody that you either take them to karaoke or, like I did to Kyle, are now long tenured, just complete badass on the CS squad who also does, sales for GMM at this point. I made him sing on the phone. Now I knew him for ages, so it was funny. And I wanted to know his music preference, but he did sing something to me on the phone. It was fantastic. Here's the deal, guys. Not everyone can hear the voice inside their head. That's what you call tone deaf, right? And it's like I was right there. Like I was outside the door, right here outside the house, and I was doing sales coaching with a guy. This is years ago at this point, and we were working on an objection overcome. And it was like, all right, so if I'm telling the truth, my program does what I say it does. If we can help you, lose the 30 pounds, so you can do this, or be an example of health, or play with your grandkids, or whatever it is it worth $10 a day to you? And he goes, okay, G, I got it. If I'm telling the truth and my program does what I say it does, if we can help you ABC, so you can XYZ, is it worth it? And I'm like, oh, wow. And so I literally asked him, like, can you do like impressions? It's like, no, I can't really do impressions. Like, do you sing? You do music at all or anything? He's like, you gotta play the keyboard, It's like, do they let you sing? He's like, no. And I was like, got it. It makes sense. So can tone deaf people close? Absolutely. I know of at least one absolutely just banger of a closer that worked on it really, really hard over time and can close people like crazy, who has potentially sung karaoke at some GMM events and is, skews tone deaf like pretty hard. I don't want to tell him this to his face. Hopefully he's not listening. I love him so much. He closes like crazy. It is easier to get somebody coached up in a sales role if they can hear the freaking voice inside their head. Because, like, Dave, if you gave me an objection overcome right now, I may not like know the words or know the feeling behind them or whatever it is, but I could probably borrow the tonality way quicker than somebody and then perform better than somebody who is like tone deaf and really had to work on it or whatever else. It's just something to look out for that will make, again, training somebody up, particularly in the sales side of things, much easier for you. Am I going to take a worse candidate than another candidate because they can sing incredibly well? No, right? It's just an indicator that that person can hear the voice inside their head. They understand what noises they're making to a certain extent, and they will probably be trained up on the maybe performative side, if you will, of sales a little bit faster than someone who's not. Um, Red flags. I've already mentioned, like, to me the biggest things would be the lack of coachability. Like, I just can't. I viscerally cannot handle people where it's like, nope, everything's somebody else's fault. I can't take coaching and feedback. Like, it's just such like a fixed mindset, like bullshit type thing. Like, I'm not going there. Like, I'm not even as soon as I sniff that at all, nope, like we're good. Um, Other things would be, okay, are we bad talking everything else that we've done in the past? Uh, that's pretty red flaggy. I think there's some cases, there are probably situations where things probably were that bad, and maybe they're very apologetic about going that way, and maybe they also say like, look, like I could have done this thing better, like part of this was on me and whatever else. Like, I really respect people that can say, no, like this part of this was on me and it was my fault. Like, that, you don't want people where it's everything is everybody else's fault, external locus of control. Everything that's wrong is because of something else and it never comes back to the mirror. Like, those would probably be my biggest things, right? That maybe have not been mentioned as deeply specifically as some of the other things that we've dove into so far today. The other thing would be being late. I forgot about this because it's been so long since we've like hired somebody for like a trainer role. But I forget where I got this tip from, but I think it was smart. Um, if you're gonna have somebody that's gonna be training morning sessions, boy, I'm setting that interview really early in the morning for the first one. Even if you're like, I don't train 5:30 a.m.s anymore. Don't care. Get up and do one of your interviews real early and see if the person's gonna be there on time. Because if they're late for the interview, this is, I'm not saying it's instant, like out the door, but there better be some damn good excuses. And it's not like my Google Maps wouldn't load. Like, if somebody's late to a training session, right? Your clients are waiting there. Like, it's a bad deal. So, being late would be a thing. Not paying attention to the freaking job description. I've got another like silly hiring tip. I don't even know if we do it anymore. Um, but I used to have like this really, really long, elaborate job description when we were hiring trainers. And there was this big block of text that was purposefully like an awful block of text. Okay. Like, it is not appropriate formatting for readability. It was a big block of text. And it was like, if you're the type of person who this, that, and the other, and this, that, and the other, and this, that, and the other, if you're the type of person that's going to take the time to actually take the time to read all this and put the word Viking in your reply email. And then it was like, but there was also more. It wasn't at the end. It was in the middle of this thing, this like huge block of text. Then it continued with, if you're the type of person who blah, 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 blah. And then I knew, I wouldn't like immediately disqualify somebody for not putting Viking in the reply email. But those that did, I was like, oh, like, you read the whole thing and paid attention, right? So if you've got the video application, you put Viking in the reply, like things like that. It's like, oh, you're starting to, okay, like this might have some promise. And then it's like, actually call references. Pro tip for asking about that is, so what are your managers? Tell me about your last role. Okay, who was your manager? It was Dave. Okay, so what's Dave gonna say about you when I give him a call? It's not if I give him a call. It's not what would Dave say about you. It's what is Dave gonna say about you when I give him a call? And if they give you like the best thing and the worst thing, whatever else, then like you could break this down into two pieces where it's like, all right, what's he gonna say? It was like the best thing when I give him a ring. What's he gonna say are the things that you kind of struggled with, or you could have done better, or what have you? Oh, that I worked too hard. Like, no. So there you go. Also, again, core values. And I think core values can be tough to suss out. I would ask AI about individual questions for your specific core values. If you want to like prompt engineer it and be like, hey, we're hiring for this role. Here's our core values. I would love some fantastic interview questions that provoke experiential answers from the people on the other side. If you don't understand the core values, feel free to prompt me. Feel free to ask me questions before you give me the final answers. And then like, you'll probably get some solid questions in relation to your specific core values, because you do want to be screening for those, because your core values are not going to be the same as my core values of the gym down the street or whatever else. You want to make sure you're having that as a piece of this puzzle. That almost goes into like the vibes and personality fit. It's like they've got to be a fit for the core values. Then you got to train the person up, but that's for a different episode.
Maybe the next one. Yeah. And I do love, that you're kind of a secret ninja at the meta prompting. And I love that idea of like saying, okay, do you have any questions for me? Or what should I be thinking about that I'm not thinking about type of thing. So those are excellent pro tips and red flags. I think we're definitely going to save folks some grief as they go through the hiring process. Anything else on this hiring of a gym GM GR?
I think we'll think about, we'll probably have some that come up, or our lovely dear listeners will send us a DM and let us know, wait, you didn't talk about this or what have you. But yeah, I don't think I've got anything else right this second.
Well, I think that's the ep. We will catch us soon. Maybe the next one we'll do more getting into more of the training and execution. Once you've hired this person, what happens side of things. That could be exciting. But dear listeners, thanks for listening. Shoot us a DM on Instagram and we'll see you soon.
Bye.